Anyway, we're holding Halacha Basar בחלב Siman Pei Zayin towards the end. Sif Zayin, and we'll do Ches, maybe a little Tes. Quick review about some halachas regarding milk that is found in a dead animal. That animal could be either a behemah shchuta, slaughtered animal, or it could be just a dead animal, what we would call a nevela. We discussed the fact that some poskim hold that this particular milk is actually asur midaraisa because it comes from a nevela. And obviously that would make it different than if it was a shchuta, because a shchuta is not a nevela. It's just milk being found. But according to some, it's the same. Cholov nevela and cholov shchuta are the same concerning basar becholov. So that's an important distinction to make, that the milk that is found in a dead animal, as the Shach points out, does not make a difference how it died, if the halacha or if the question that we are entertaining is basar becholov. Obviously, if the question that we're entertaining is the kashrus of the milk, that's when we obviously are dealing only with nevela versus shchuta. Because if the animal is slaughtered in a kosher manner, then there's not a problem. So we did have one opinion that holds that the isur would only be a derabanan, just like the base of a nevela is a isur derabanan. That was, I believe, the drisha. That an animal that is a nevela, the milk that is found is a isur derabanan. What would be the difference? I mean, in opinions, why would some hold that it would be completely asur or not? Well, obviously the milk at one time was kosher milk. And if it was once upon a time kosher milk, why shouldn't it continue to be kosher milk just because the animal dies? So we said that obviously the reason why it perhaps should change its status, its halachic status from mutter to isur, is because now it has gone back to being part of the animal. Goes back to being part of the animal, then obviously that poses a problem, because that which comes from an nevela, if you treat it like edible food, that is, and I say edible food because we're going to see something called prisha be'alma, a concept called prisha. Prisha means waste. Waste is not food. And if waste is not food, it may not have the same problems as something that is food, something that is edible. But something that is considered food, something that is edible, coming from a nevela poses a problem, just like it would, in a similar way, pose a problem if it came from a treifa. An animal that is a treifa, milk that we know that came afterwards, after the treifa was formed, would be asur. The issue sometimes that comes up with treifas, however, is that we don't know when the treifa came about, plus if the milk got mixed with other milk. So then we have a question of taaruvot, of milk, of a lot of milk. It's not just this one particular milk. Then there's a question about sircha. So you may have, at times you may even have a sveka, legabe de milk, that comes from a treifa. So therefore, many times it's possible to be lenient with milk where we have a question whether it came from a treifa. But with an nevela, obviously, it's not too common. The animal is dead, and we're talking about the milk that is being found in the animal after it died. So we explained that according to the Chochmasot and the Pri Chodesh, they also hold that there's no real isur if the animal died by itself, or the shechita wasn't done properly, which renders it a nevela. All right. Now, there would be, however, a different kind of milk, in which we'll be dealing with, discussing in Sif Ches and Tes, actually Tes and Yud. A different kind of milk that is found not in a regular cow, but in a calf. This is the milk that the calf drank from its mother. Okay? So we're going to make a distinction when we talk about that very, very soon, that this is milk being found in the calf's stomach after it has been slaughtered. Real milk, obviously, but it drank it, right? From the mother. What is the status of that milk? Believe it or not, it's a whole different set of problems. It's a whole big machlokas, a big sugya in itself. As opposed to the question that we just had right now is regular milk found in the cow that ordinarily we would milk on our own. So the two are quite different. Before we get to that, last time we spoke about something called a shlil. In discussing a shlil, which is a ben pakua in a sense, an animal, a calf that is developing in its mother's womb, that it has certain unique halachas, very, very unique halachas concerning shchita. Since the ben pakua is part of the mother, it doesn't require shchita. If the mother had shchita, the mother's shchita exempts it from shchita. That is, if it's ben ches chai or mace, or ben tes. Ben ches means 8 months, or ben tes 9 months full term mace. Chai, we explained that if it's alive and it put its feet on the ground, once it puts its feet on the ground, it walks around because of maris ayin only. Because of the problem of maris ayin, it would require shchita. So in other words, the mother shchita covers the calves, and the calf does not need a shchita midaraisa, but midarabanan, it may require depending on the circumstance if it put its feet on the ground. Nevertheless, the shlil, dead or alive, is basar. As the Halacha tells us, and the Mechaber points out, whoever is mevashel shlil b'cholav chayav, whoever eats it. Okay? So even though the shlil, the ben pekua, has special halachas concerning shchita, and even treifas, by the way, that the treifas don't apply to it, most treifas don't apply to ben pekua, still, you cannot eat it with milk. It's basar. So I'm not sure if we explained what would be the din of the chalav of the ben pekua itself. Alive, obviously. It has chalav of its own. Is this a different kind of an animal?
It doesn't require shchita.
Because it doesn't require shchita? Is this ben
No,
pekua?
it has chalav of its own. This calf happened to have it.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The children don't need a shchita.
Yeah, it's a whole.
Does it depend on the father or cow?
Yeah, but right now we're talking about chalav. Let's not.
Get confused.
Yeah, no, because there is a sugi about ben pekua running around. Yeah. What about the chalav of a ben pekua? So this is a question Rabbi Akiva Eger raises. Is this a different kind of an animal because it's a ben pekua? Is it called chalav shchuta, like chalav shchuta, that is excluded? Right? We said from the diuk in the pasuk בחלב imo, lo tevashel gdi בחלב imo velo בחלב shchuta. If it's shchuta slaughtered, it's not included. So Rabbi Akiva Eger says, well, wait a minute, perhaps since we're mimayit b'chalev imo in ashchutu, maybe we're also mimayit ben pekua. And he remains in the tzorech hiyun. Yeah, and he explains there why, because it's eino re'uyo li es ein, by a shchuta, it's eino, the whole idea is keino re'uyo li es ein, masha'in ken ben pekua can become a mother. Right? Shchuta cannot become an aim. It's not imoy. Right? That's the diuk. So eino re'uyo li es ein. It's slaughtered. A ben pekua can be an imoy, can be a mother one of these days. Anyway, I saw the Niddah Yehuda, the Chassam Sofer, they basically hold that it's a real Isur Torah, even though the Rabbi Akiva Eger appears to be also saying it may be Asr, but he remains with the Tzarech Hiyun. And the Chassam Sofer and others say that it would be an Isur Torah, since it could be a regular mother. Or Chashuchen, I also saw, says the same thing. So even though it's different, like the other halachas, it would be the same. Another clarification about dam becholav, and I'm only going over it because I'm not sure if we were specific enough. Dam becholav. Now, we cannot eat dam. We cannot drink the blood of an animal. So the question was, can you cook it with cholav? What's the question? The question is dam like meat or not? And the Mechaber tells us, he told us before, that either whether it was cholav of a mesa or becholav zachar or dam becholav, all of these are potur. So obviously, dam is excluded from the Gemara. It's the same sugya there that excludes a whole list of things from that pasuk. Also excludes dam, blood. Gdi, it says the hoitzi dam. You look at the Magid Mishnah, which is one of the Meforshim of the Rambam, where the Rambam brings these halachas from the Gemara. And he says that it's mashma from the Rambam that in all these that are listed, that it says potter, there is an Isra Midurabanan. So the Chochmas Adam says Isra Durabanan legabe what? The Chochmas Adam, it says that there's even an Isra Durabanan legabe the bishul. Even legabe cooking dam with milk. Let's say someone needed to do it, there would be an Isra Durabanan. And we had a question with Rabbi Akiva Eger on that. Rabbi Elyahu says of that whole list of Isurim Derabanan, I'm a little bit having a hard time with the dam. Why should dam be any different than, remember, Chalav Tmeya with Basar, or Basar Tmeya with Chalav? Let's say you're working in a pharmacy, and you're taking camel's meat, flesh or whatever, and you're cooking it up with milk. I mean, that is completely excluded, and according to some, you can even cook it. There's no issur to cook that combination, because it's treif meat. There was camel, tomeh. If there's no issur, Rabbi had a question about this dam. He says, over there we see that it's treif, and there would be no issur bishul, right? Why would there be a question like dam, whether there should be an issur derabanan? Why can't it be the same like nevela with cholov? Not nevela, I should say tmeya with cholov. Tmeya with cholov you can cook. Why shouldn't I be able to cook this lechatchila? Cooking the dam, I'm not going to eat it anyway. I can't eat it because of the dam, he says. If I can't eat it because of the dam, then why shouldn't I be able to cook it? It's a good question. He remains with a tzarech as to why would there be a reason to prohibit the cooking of bishul. So anyway, I looked it up again today, and I saw that the Aruch HaShulchan says that there is an Isser midrabanan on all of these, but it's mutar bebishul ubehano.
Well, that would make sense. He says.
Well, no, but the Aruch HaShulchan is the only one of the only ones that says that it's mutar bebishul. Not everybody says it's mutar bishul.
Within its own logic, it makes sense.
Yeah. The Magid Mishnah and the Rambam says that all of these that are also b'durabanan, all of these have an Isur Derabanan. The Chochmas Adam explains, or that what that means is, not that he's explaining the Magid Mishnah, is that it's also an Isur in Bishul. Right? Remember, some of them have a problem with Ma'is Ayin, some of them have another problem with Derabanan. According to some, there would be no problem. Not that you can't eat it. Blood with milk. Yeah, but what are you going to do with it? You're making a formula. You're making your.
Why is there between milk and blood and blood?
No, meat and blood we haven't discussed. There's no prohibition to cook blood and milk, meat and blood. You just can't have it. You can't consume it. The blood. That's why we have to salt the meat, right? To draw out the blood. We are not allowed to eat blood, animal blood. So we need to salt the blood. We need to remove the blood of the meat. There's no prohibition. If somebody needs, for some reason, for a goy, he needs to cook that meat for him with the blood and everything. Especially in Germany, they pour extra blood, right? For breakfast, they have these. What? Yeah, they have blood. They have a lot. Anyway, there would be no prohibition for you to cook it, but you can't eat it. So here the question is, what would be the problem of cooking blood with milk? To eat it, we can't, because not only is it an Isur D'Rabbanan, together with the rest of them to have it, but the blood itself is an Isur D'Oraisa. It's possibly an Isur D'Oraisa. Right? So that was the question of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Because Magid Mishnah writes that this whole list are also D'Rabbanan. There's an Isur D'Rabbanan on the meat, because it says it's potter, but it's also. Chochmas Adam says the Maisa Bishul is also also Midrabanan. And that's what Rabbi Akiva Eiger has a question with. But I saw that the Aruch HaShulchan does say that Bishul will be mutter. Mutter b'Bishul behana. So on the dam, just on the dam. And yeah. Who answers it? Anyway.
Because he said he's the alone.
He may, I don't know if he's the only one. I didn't check everybody out.
No, but what you saw him answered it.
Yeah, nobody really makes a distinction here. The Mechaber just says that you're potter. But so we learned that these are Asr Midrabanan at least. That's the way everybody appears to hold that. At least there's an Isra Midrabanan. And what does that concern? That concerns the whole list that we said before of a Mevashel Basar, the Meichalav, or the Chalav, B'chalav Meisa, B'chalav Zachar, or Shabishal Dom, B'chalav Potter, Ve'en Loikin Alachilas, B'shal Basar B'chalav. Yeah. Yeah, it ultimately, if it's also be'achila, as we explained before, that the Shach, I believe it says, then there wouldn't be a problem of Marisayin either, because we can't eat this stuff. If people can see you can't eat this stuff, or if there's something unusual about it. Yeah, but you have a very good question. We will see in the next seif about the milk found in a calf's stomach. They got the question of Mari sign. Yeah. So we'll maybe remind me when we talk about that. We'll bring that up, the question of Mari sign, where it may not be a problem by itself, but what about Mari sign? So remind me then. But other than that, I mean, that's the only chiluk here, that there may be a heter perhaps, the gabidam becholov. You know, if it's only the Rabbanu, what should there be a problem with bishul? Rabbi Shulchan says no. Doesn't seem to be that there would be a problem on this particular example. That is with the dam. Okay, next. We went on to explain that אבל המבש של שיליו או אויר וגידים ועצמוס ויקורא קרניים וטלופים הרקים פוטר וכן האוכל פוטר. Okay, so we're done with shlil. Shlil is real meat. But what about those items that are not real meat? They include the placenta, the skin or hide, the sinews and the bones, the horns, the hoofs. Potter v'chen ha'oichlem potter. These are also listed as potter. In other words, obviously you don't want to do this lechatchila. What's the status of these items? The skin, or that somos, they don't really have flavors. They don't really emit a flavor. They are not considered real basar, except perhaps with some sinews of the basar itself that run through the meat itself. But otherwise, the hard ones, the hard sinews, just like the gida nasha, there's no tam in there. There's no flavors emitted. All of these, even though they may be part of an animal, that's not included in the Isur of Basar B'Cholov. Same thing with the placenta. Even though the placenta appears to be a piece of meat, they consider that pirsha. Pirsha meaning it's waste. It's not meat. It's not something that's really edible. It's just garbage, waste. And because of that, it's not food. Not food, it's not considered a problem Gabi Basar B'Cholov. Okay. So before we go on, we have to understand, why does the Mechaber here, in quoting the Rambam, emphasize the word rakim? When he talks about the horns and the hoofs, he says, or actually he uses the word to describe all of these. Gidim, atzomos, v'korek, hanayim, utlofim, harakim. It appears to be, in quoting the Rambam, that the rakim, soft, are also going on the bones itself. Okay? There are hard bones and soft bones, which is what we're going to be discussing right now, the various kinds of bones. And all of this, B'ezrat Hashem, you will see, may make a difference next week, or whenever we get to it, when we discuss a little bit about rennet. Does everybody here know what rennet is? Huh? You know what it is, right? How they make cheese. There are various ways on how to make cheese. There's the old way of taking a piece of the stomach and putting it into the milk to make it curd. There's chemicals they use. There's a sour milk or acidic milk. And concerning the bones, that has nothing to do with the bones. That has to do with the hide, with the skin. Concerning the bones, there is something called gelatin, which you probably have seen. So if we have time, we're going to go into a little bit as to what the problem is to particular ingredients when they appear in ice cream, yogurts. Why aren't they kosher if they're completely dry? They come from bones, if they come from hide, the skin. So that is why this is a good introduction, I think, or it's a good place to start elaborating on these additional halachas so that we can understand why the companies, the kashrus companies, are prohibiting us, or why don't they want to give hashgacha on marshmallows for those who want to have their marshmallows at the bonfire. Right? You know, marshmallows can be also made with kosher gelatins from fish. But what would be wrong with the real gelatin that comes from animal origin? Even though we cannot eat the animal, even though it's treif, something that is not edible, something that is a pirsha be'alma, something that is dry, should not be a problem, or should it? But for those of you who were in Hilchas Taaruvot, we briefly spoke about another issue called Dover HaMa'amid. Dover HaMa'amid is that there are certain ingredients that have special powers. Let's say it that way. And the special power means that you throw in a little bit of this into the milk, and voila, it starts to operate. It starts to do something to the milk, coagulates it. It transforms it into cheese. That's called davar hama'amid. And because it has a unique function, it's not bottle. It doesn't. The hilchos of bitul do not apply to it. Usually you have bitul b'roiv, you have bitul b'shishim, right? Something can be cancelled. You have a very small amount of it in the food, okay, it's gone. There's another question of lechatchila. Can you have a small amount in a food? Lechatchila, remember that? If something happened in your kitchen and it's very, very minute, we apply the halachas of bitul. But then there's a problem of bitul lechatchila. Can you intentionally put a small amount of treif, food, into this mixture, into this cake? It's so small, it's so minute, it's 0.001%. We will talk about this, I don't know, maybe a little bit today too, about something called caseinate that Ilan brought to my attention. Remember caseinate? Caseinate is a byproduct of milk. Milk consists of three major ingredients. Lactose is sugar, whey, and caseinate. I mean, that's what basically milk, the caseinate and the whey are proteins. The lactose is sugar. And this is an incredible area to, if you like these things, to get into, because today there is a trend. I shouldn't call it a trend. It's actually a concern amongst the goyim about lactose-free. You know about that. Why? They don't have a problem of basar בחלב. Why would they be concerned of something being lactose-free?
Lactose
intolerant. Exactly. Allergic. There's also an allergy for casein. There's also something called caseinate. But anyway, something can have casein and be called non-dairy by the goyim. But for us, you'll see an OUD or an OKD. A D, because it's a milk derivative. DE, by the way, is dairy equipment. You bet, right? It's a whole different idea. But D is a milk derivative. Okay, maybe a small amount. It may not be such a big issue. I mean, all right, that's something else. How much there is something else. But at least it's a milk derivative. So the question comes up. I've seen it in the internet. People are asking, how come the Jews are calling this OUD if the company that made it is calling it non-dairy? And guess what? Our standards for what something is dairy is different than their standards, because they're concerned about lactose. If something has casein, they don't necessarily bring that up. Still, according to, depending on the FDA rules, they may be able to get away with labeling it as a non-dairy product. But when it comes to kashrus, for us, it is important for us to know how something is made, either because of milk, or because, when it comes to cheese, because of gvinas akum, which we may get to talk about a little bit next week, about cheese being made by a goy, if it has certain ingredients that were put into to create that cheese, depending on how it's made, the usual or a different way. So that is why it's important to know a little bit about these things, and as to what are the issues, where is it coming from? It's coming from a dead animal. So what? It's dry. It's bones. And so that's what we're going to cover now. Bones. Do they pose a problem or not? So the Mechaber says here that lechatchila, at least, you shouldn't do it. But if you did it, it's potter. In other words, you can't cook or eat or give them batzomas with chalav and all these things. But because he says it's potter. Potter means, but it's also. But the Mechaber is quoting the Lashon of the Rambam, and he uses the word rakim. And that's what poses a question here. Why did he use the word rakim, even though he's quoting? Did he mean rakim only, soft bones, or did he mean any bones? Because perhaps if it's only the soft bones, then hard bones would be mutter. And if I can use hard bones with milk, then what is stopping me from using hard bones that are not kosher? Is there a distinction? I mean, because he emphasizes soft over here. Rabbi Godim talks about this, and he says maybe he meant rakim soft for some other items here, the hoofs or whatever, but not the bones. Bones, they're all, even the hard bones are aser. Midrabanan. Others prohibit only soft. The Prisha, the Minchas Yaakov I saw, Knesset Agdola I believe, But the Pri Megadim says all bones should be asur to cook with milk. Okay. Now, in order to understand this a little bit better, let's go through the shittas concerning bones that are to be found a little bit. We spoke about it in Halacha Taaruvot and Siman Tzadik Tes. We're concerned in Tzadik Tes. We're concerned with Atzomos im mitztar from levatel iser. Can we include atzomos in the vittel of an iser? You have a pot. Something is treif inside the pot. You have kosher meat. You have non-kosher meat, and they have bones on them. Well, I have a dilemma here. What's my dilemma? I need shishim. Well, against the meat alone, or do I need shishim against that? It's two of this has a lot of bone around it. And then I have another dilemma, another question. Of course, I have a lot of stuff in this pot, but I also have kosher bones. Can I use the kosher bones also to be mevatel, or bones excluded from being mevatel? So that's the question of if atzomas are mitzdarf. Both ways. Can I use them to be mevatel? Does it count? And do I need to be mevatel them if they are treif? So we have 4 shittas. I'll go over with you the shittas so you should have an understanding of the status of this bones halacha l'maaseh. So we have the shittas Meiri. I think the Isra Beheter too. A few that hold with this shittas that asomas mitztarfas gam leheter and gam leyusr. What does that mean? You need shishim keneged that asomas of the Isra. Yeah. It's mitztarf leisr and leheter, which means I need shishim against the bones that are treif too. But the good news is I can use my atzomas kasheras to be mevatel those atzomas treifas. Good. That's the easy, simple shita. It's brought down. Another shita is brought. I think it's the Or Zarua that says that atzomas ha'isur are never a problem. They're not mitzdarf at all. But atzomas of heter, yes. Atzomas of isur, you don't have to worry about it. There's not that much tam. We're concerned with the flesh, with the meat. Atzomas is not a problem. Atzomas heter, of course you could use it to be mevatel. You have 60, and that includes bones? Yeah, use it. That's the second shita. The third shita, the famous shita, of course, of the Rashba, the Rosh, Shimshon, the Tur, that's the way the Mechaber holds, is that even the atzomas ha'isur are mitzdaref leheter. That's the interesting shita. That's the most lenient shita of all. Not only do your own kosher bones add up or are included in being mevatel the isur, even the bones of the treif meat can be included in the 60 to be mevatel the meat of the treif. You hear? In other words, they too, it's a knockout. They gang up together all the bones and the kosher stuff. It says we'll give them mevatel if you have enough this treif meat. So that's the way we hold. That atzomas are not going to play a major issue, except that if you need it for heter, you can use them. Then you have the Shita Saran, who are mechalek between soft bones and hard bones. So they're the only ones that make a chiluk, depending on the bones. So the Mechaber and the Ramah hold like the lenient ones, that bones are always going to be helpful, if anything. They're not going to pose a problem. And in that halacha, there's no distinction being made between soft and hard. If that's the case, if that's the sheet of the Mechaber and the Ramah, that we hold like the ones who say that atzomas are always going to be mevatel, even atzomas of Isur are going to help us be mevatel the Isur, and kol shekein the atzomas of heter. If that's the case, the Pri Megadim raises the following question: that it's mashma. I don't know if this is actually. I should correct myself. I'm not sure if it's his question. I saw somebody bring it down. Somebody bringing down this particular question. The Pri Megadim just says that it's mashma from the Pri Megadim that Mechaber will hold that even atzomois koshim would be also in basar b'chalav. That's what he says. Even though here he quotes atzomos rakim, he seems to understand that the Mechaber would hold that even atzomos koshim, at least lechatchila maybe, would also be also in basar b'chalav. And the question is, like as follows. Why? If in Neveles and Treifas, in Hilchos Taaruvos, we said that the Mechaber holds that they can be mevatel, they can help us be mevatel, in other words, they don't pose a problem, they are included in being mevatel the Isser, why should they be Asr over here? You follow the question here? In other words, if bones are not a problem by a nevela, a tmeya, if anything they are mitzaref to be mevatel the Isser, why would I have a problem with them in Basar b'chalav? Why would the din of the atzamos here be any different than it is over there? You understand the question? Yeah. We brought it up a little bit last year. Why would the halacha be any different regarding the status of atzamos here than from Hilchos Taaruvos, where the Mechaber and the Ramal are going with the lenient shita that the bones don't pose a problem? And it doesn't really differentiate there between soft and hard. So that's the question whether he does here or not. But Mikvaot says he probably does not differentiate that. Even the Atzamas Koshim would be also Basar b'chalav.
What bones?
No, obviously, no. That's a separate question. In other words, the issue of non-kosher bones, you can't do it. You obviously don't want. You can't use it. No, you can't use it. Right now, we're talking about b'diavad. Nobody's going to tell you go ahead and cook with non-kosher bones. The only time we may have that legitimate question regarding a derivative of a non-kosher animal is regarding the gelatin and the rennet, which we'll speak about separately. That's dry, completely dry. Okay, somebody has to take a pill right now, and it's a capsule. It's a gel capsule. You know what gel capsule means? It's made from gelatin. It's made from an animal. They tell you it's from pork. Yeah, but it's not edible. The gel is not edible.
Powdered milk?
What about it? It's powdered milk is powdered milk, but it's from a cow, right? Right? It's a kosher animal. You can have powdered milk in your coffee. Well, your question was concerning what? Yeah, but concerning what? Was powdered milk of a camel? You mean? Are you talking about it from a cow or from a cow? Then what would be your question? You can have milk. You can have powdered milk. Or unless you're asking, can I have powdered milk with my coffee after I ate steak?
Yeah.
Right. The answer is no. Why? Because in a way that powdered milk is being reconstituted. Is that the word, Ilan? It's being restored back into milk once it's in the liquid. In a sense. What?
So according to that, if it remained,
if it remained so dry that it was like a be'etz be'alma, but it's not. Powdered milk is not like that, right?
Milk is quite tasty.
What is that?
Powdered milk is quite tasty.
It's quite tasty, yeah. Powdered milk, in other words, is not something which, even though it's dry,
But
it has taste. It's still not.
That's why when you put it in coffee, it adds taste.
Yeah, it's not like we're talking about soon about the hide of an animal. Basically, it's not food. It's not even food, and it's dry like a tree, like a piece of wood.
Are you saying then that both gelatin and edible dry?
That's correct. They do, but we will see that there's a difference in the rennet because of its special special quality, I should say, not virtue. Yeah, but virtue is something good. I guess it is. I guess, but it's a quality, a special quality, this gula, or special ability that it can make cheese. So it's also there's an isur midrabanan because of that. Same thing about things that enhance the color and give it a color. The laws of bittul, the halachas of bittul may no longer apply to it because the Chachamim said, you know what, this is very important. It's dry, but look what it accomplishes. Okay, so we'll discuss that separately. No, but with powdered milk, it's still considered milk. It's still food. It's still edible. It's just in a different form. Yeah, totally different category. Yeah, how it's made, and that's why the questions arise as to depending on how, in what form it is. Dry, like in a capsule. Right? In a sense, it's a shaloi kederach. You don't eat it. You don't eat this kind of stuff. You're just using it to swallow. I know that some will tell you, some will instruct you, why don't you just take out the capsule and just drink or swallow the powder, which is really what you need. What's the purpose of the capsule, however? It serves at least two purposes. Correct me if I'm wrong. One is, nobody wants to have that powder, which is bitter. Number two, there are certain medications, which I forget the word for it, that require a time for them to sit in your stomach before they take effect. Right?
There are also some that need work, they will irritate.
They will irritate.
They will work if
Right. So that's why they put them in a capsule versus just a tablet. Or, right? Well, you can have a tablet. So that's the question, if the capsule is made of gelatin. That's the issue. So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll get into that, into the whole sugya.
I saw it once in some pill.
One more time, that in Pesach?
On Pesach, they have the gelatin,
Right.
then take a pill.
Oh, sure.
I
Exactly.
don't know if it's a problem, but...
But yeah, if that was the choice, because it's not a real, there is a heter on taking derivatives of non-kosher animals that are completely dried out. It's not a problem of Basar bechalv, by the way, where we know that even shaloi kederech, he would be asur, right? Shaloi kederech ana asur. Here, shaloi kederech, it's not the usual way of consumption. It's completely dried out. At least b'di'evet, it wouldn't be a problem. Lechatchila is another question. So that's where we're getting into right now. We're talking about bones, and we have the various shittas. So why would the mechaber here say that bones should present any problem altogether? Anyway, I saw in the Sefer Madane HaShulchan, which you are familiar with. Yeah? No? Just Badei HaShulchan? Yeah. Okay, so he explains basically like this. Bishar Isurim, there's no bone, there's no tam, there's no real tam. The little, like you see by Gid HaNoshin, the sciatic nerve, there's no tam really emitted. Even though you may have a little bit of lachluches, a little bit of moisture, over there it's considered a min beminoi situation. That even the little bit of moisture is bottled because it's min beminoi, the same kind. He says, but over here, in Basar bechalv, you do have a tam kolush, you do have somewhat of a little bit of a flavor that will be detectable in the milk, and therefore, because it's a min b'she'eino minoi, right, it would be more chomer than, like we said last time, more chomer than a nat bar nat. In other words, because something will be detectable, some trace of it. And therefore, it's even osur b'di'eved if bones fell into milk. All he said is ha'oichlam potur, but if you know bones, a piece of bone, you have in your freezer, by mistake, somebody, the balabosta took out a bone instead of for the challenge, she threw it into the milk pot. I mean, you can't have it, although it's bone. B'di'eved, midrabanan. Now, I did see, however, that some are mechalek between different kinds of bones. Let me see if I have it over here. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that next. Before we go...
This would only be, though, for bus, the rabbanim to begin with.
That's a good question. Then you have two derabbanans. You have the bones, and you have the... Huh?
Yeah, except for by Basar bechalv, I noticed they remain machmir. I'm not sure what the din is.
Obviously committed.
Yeah.
It's not automatic.
Yeah. Is that what?
By Basar bechalv, it's not automatic.
You can't do it lechatchila. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, what we've seen so far really concerns actually the bones. The question is if the milk is mutter or not. We will see that in this case there's a difference between the milk and the bone. Having been cooked in the milk, that is. The bone is also for us to eat. It has absorbed milk. But what about the milk itself? Is there anything in the milk right now that has come from the bone that to make the milk also? So that's what we're going to see next. So the Mechaber says that concerning the hide and the gidim and the ma'atzomis, lechatchila, of course, you can't. But if you cooked it and you ate it, it's potter. What happens to the milk, however? So the Badei HaShulchan, and this brings down, that the milk itself, where the bones were cooked, does not become asur. Why? Because there's no tam. the ore, especially the ore with the ayin, does not the skin does not give off any flavor. And once, if you don't have a flavor, then why should the chalav be asur? It may be lechatchila asur to cook together the mixture, okay, for whatever reason. But b'di'evet, if there's no tam, there's no reason to asur the milk. If I want to drink the milk, I can drink the milk. I saw the Pri Megadim bring down a question, which Moshe Feinstein also talks about, that if somebody took a piece of hide and soaked it in milk, cooked it in milk, I forget what it was there, then you should not have it. He's machmir. Moshe Feinstein says in reality it shouldn't be a problem because there's no tam of basar. Why should it be also to begin with? But he's machmir. You may think this is not relevant, but it can be relevant in medication.
Like a water bottle, a leather water, like leather water bottles.
Right. Yeah. Good question. Good idea, or good example. Putting milk into that.
It's already dry.
But if it's real leather, it's already completely dry.
Completely dry.
Yeah.
Would there be a mixture if it's going into...
Well, we said that kavush is kemevushal for certain things, even though by basar b'chalav it doesn't really apply. It's not real bishul. Something that is soaked 24 hours usually has a certain effect. It doesn't qualify as bishul as far as the issue of the Torah. It's not bishul. It's not cooked. But in some ways it does absorb. But if something is completely dry, that's a very good. It would be another example of. Yeah.
Coffee too.
Yeah. With what?
Or what with coffee in there?
Where?
And
In a leather pouch. So that would be the question here. If once it's completely dry, it doesn't emit any flavor. There should
look
be.
it up, I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah. There shouldn't be any problem with it because it doesn't. Nothing really comes out of it. Right? There's no flavor coming out of it. So concerning the milk, as we see, it should be mutter. But the example that I told you, Moshe Feinstein brings down, which is also the example of the Pri Megadim, that if you really soaked it or cooked it, what would be the status of the milk? He says you should be machmer in the or.
It's not that it's a problem with basar.
No.
You just should be machmer.
You should be machmer.
It doesn't look right.
But it doesn't look right. He says you should be machmer on it.
But it's a chumrah.
Yeah, but in that case, he says I think it was cooked. You cooked it in, not that just soaked. I don't know if it was soaked, just cooked in it. Yeah, so obviously you need to be machmer. But again, what is the point over here? That these things don't really emit any flavor, especially the skin, the hide. Okay, so the Pri Megadim basically makes the following distinction concerning the milk. If you're talking about atzamas koshers, the atzamas, the hard bones are also midrabanan, like we learned over here, but the milk is mutter. If we're talking about soft bones, even the milk is also midrabanan. That's what he says. I guess the soft bones would have maybe a little bit more of a flavor. And guess what? If we're talking about a bone that has marrow, that's the best for child. That which has moach in it is a doraisa. Why? Because the moach inside is considered like basar mamish, like meat. So sometimes if you have in your freezer, you may have those kind of bones that have moach in them. That would be a different halacha than the tzamos that we're talking about over here.
I remember I told her
Right?
the bones in the middle, what we
Yeah.
decided.
Right.
So there was a big whether or not bones.
Okay.
There's something called food. Those who said no one eats bones.
People suck in it.
People said no. People will eat bones.
If it's very soft, you can eat it the whole thing. Yeah, you would never feel it. Yeah.
No, don't feel it. It's a delicacy.
Completely,
They
yeah.
want it.
Yeah.
It's a Persian delicacy.
Well, cow brains is something else.
Like
They have a lot of people eat cow brains. It's just a little difficult to get it over here. Yeah. So, but that's meat, just like any other organ.
what eyes?
Same thing. Yeah, the same thing. Most of the body of the cow, except for the hide and the bone and sinews, that's what we're seeing over here, would be considered meat. So it's a good question. I mean, is there anything else that we didn't list? Well, the tail. Well, the tail's meat, Ox tail is a delicacy. But not the hair.
Sheep also, no sheep,
The sheep, yeah. The sheep in Farsi, they call it dombe. Have you ever heard of it? The dombe is the fat, or in Arabic, liya, in Hebrew, aliyah, is the fat behind it's basically the fat of the tail. Very, very tasty. In Farsi, it's called dombe. So if you don't know what it is, ask the old generation. Tell you it's good. Gewaldig, yeah. Anyway, so that, of course, you're allowed to have it, but it's fat, not with milk. Right. So basically, almost all these things, except for the few that are listed over here, are excluded by the Eved. The question was, what's the status of the milk? Well, if we're talking about bones and things like this that don't emit flavor, then they would be mutar. Except for the etzem of moach, with the moach, which I don't know why he wouldn't mention it over here. I mean, the Pri Megadim talks about it, that, but he doesn't say anything. The Mechaber, it's not mentioned over here. There's no gzera. The Rav Moshe Feinstein points out that there's no gzera ba'or. They didn't make a gzera to cook the hide with milk. There was no such gzera even. But he still says you have to be machmer. In other words, you don't want to take, I don't know who would, but this could come up only, again, in a situation where medication, where it was cooked. Is this called basar b'chalav? Well, it's not basar b'chalav. We see it's not real basar b'chalav. It's not basar. So, you wouldn't be able to have it. Can you do it? No, you shouldn't do it l'chakila. We're machmer on that. Okay.
When you say machmer on it, would that give you a heter then for pharmaceuticals?
Yes, it would. No problem. No problem, for sure. Yeah. All right, let's just finish up with Sif Ches. In Sif Ches, we spoke a little bit about it before because it came up with Mei Chalav in Sif Vov. In Sif Ches, he actually discusses what the components of milk are. Yesh Misha Oimer, there are some who say, the Nisiyube de Chalba, and he's quoting the Tur, who's quoting his father, the Rosh. Some say that the Nisiyube de Chalba, what we call the whey, and in parentheses, what is Nisiyube de Chalba? Pirush Chalav hamitmatzet mikipaon hagvina. In the formation of cheese, that which is removed on the top. Not the milk at the bottom that is curd, that is transforming to cheese, but that which is removed. That's called the whey. So some say Nisiyube de Chalba einam bichlal mei chalav. Mei chalav, we said before in Sivav that it's not such a big deal. It's aser. Ein loikin al achilasa mishum basar b'chalav. But some say that's the Rosh. Nisiyube de Chalba is not like mei chalav. You may want to be lenient to mei chalav b'di'evet. It's not a real chalav. Mei chalav being after you cook up the whey, the water that remains behind is the mei chalav, what they may call whey permeate. It says Nisiyube de Chalba, the whey itself is real milk. It's considered like real milk, and it does actually appear like real milk. And it's also min Torah. So that which we said in Sivav, that whoever cooked in these things, chalav meisa, chalav zochar, and so forth, the mei chalav, all of these are potor. That's not with Nisiyube de Chalba. So the Mechaber here, quoting the Rosh, says that we are machmir in whey. Whey is considered completely basar b'chalav min Torah. Elo mei chalav, the one that we mentioned before, the liquid of chalav, the water of the chalav. Haino, achasho isim magvino, after you've made the cheese, mevashlim manesiyube, you cooked in the siyube, the whey, va'ochel tzaf milemala, the food, the solid, will flow to the top, velo nisha bo elamayim, and only water is remaining, ve'alma, zeh wanikra mei chalav. So after you process the whey, the liquid of the whey, the more, transparent part of it, not the solid, that is mei chalav. That is the one that b'di'evet is okay, but only b'di'evet still. Whey itself is real chalav, and there are foods that are made from whey. Not only is it Melicha, you wouldn't be able to use it with meat. So this would be an isser of basar b'chalav min Torah if you used whey. He holds like the Rosh, as opposed to the other shitas. Now that's the Mechaber. The Pri Chodosh argues on this, and he holds that mei chalav is the same like Nisiyube. Just like I think it was Toisus, right? That holds that Rashi and Toisus. Yeah, some say it's the same, like Nisiyube. Masha'en Kin the Rosh, that they're two separate things. So the Pri Chodosh argues here in the Shulchan Aruch and says it's like mei chalav. There's no issue in the Torah. The Pri Megadim says that we follow the Shulchan Aruch. Even behefset merubah, somebody that cooked whey, some whey got mixed into. We treat it like chalav, and obviously, if you have the shear to be mevatalet, it's batal, but you would need it, and it poses many problems because of chanan and other things too. If you treat it like real basar b'chalav midaraisa, it's a problem. Yeah, so that's ligabe the nisiyube chalba and mei chalav. What about other items that come out from milk? So it all depends what it is and how it's made. Is it considered milk or not? Is it the real milk? Is it edible? Because they take out all these chemicals, all these derivatives that may not be a problem. They may be just like mei chalav, if anything. Or if they contain solids, they may be like chalav. It all depends what we're talking about. We know that cheese and butter, and all these goodies that are made from milk are, for the most part, basically like milk. They don't have a different din concerning basar b'chalav, that is. And concerning chalav, as far as whether you can have it after you ate a meal. You can't. All of these things are considered dairy. But the question of basar b'chalav is a little bit different because the combination of it has to be real milk. Well, skim milk is real milk, but it's just skim, right? So the only exception that we have here is mei chalav, and anything that may perhaps resemble mei chalav. That's also, there may be other items out there, but he doesn't mention any other than that. So even though B'ezrat Hashem will cover these halachas next week, I just want to read it inside for you so that you know what we're talking about. In Sif Tes, we're talking about chalav hanimtza bekeva. So until now, and with this we'll finish. Until now we spoke about chalav that perhaps you may have found in a behema shchuta or behema mesa, a dead animal. Right? So this is the mother's milk. The mother's milk you would find where? In the udder. That's correct. And that's a separate issue. You may have real milk found there, or you may just have the udder in itself that may have some residue or taste of milk, which is discussed later on separately. What we discussed so far is real chalav found in a behema shchuta or behema mesa. Real milk. It looks like the real thing, but the animal is dead. So there was a question of basar b'chalav. There was a question of chalav coming from an avela, right? Coming from a dead animal. Okay. And what did we say? That it's a machlokes. Legabe basar b'chalav, it makes no difference if it's shchuta or if it's an avela, right? Makes no difference. By an avela, however, we did say that there would not be an iser halal iser legabe achila. Remember the question of basar nevela and the chalav?
So what about the meat?
No, the meat. We're talking about the meat at that point. Even though there may not be a problem with the bishul of a nevela and chalav, even though there is a problem with doing that, cooking the nevela with the milk, even though that is still a prohibition, the eating you would not be loike on the eating. Why? Because of ein isur chal al isur. You have already the isur of eating the nevela.
Now let me point you a question. Yeah. Are you talking about there would be no isur that was cooked together? Or are you saying what we know like
if it was cooked together? No. We're talking about cooked together.
After it's cooked together, so the gabe the cook, right? We have the isur the rice, but the gabe eating that cooked, we no longer have the isur the rice.
One more time.
The gabe cooking, we have the isur the oraisa.
Right.
But once it was cooked, all of a sudden the isur the oraisa for you can eat that one.
No, on the achila itself.
I'm saying.
Right.
But yeah, when you talk about achila, it's what was cooked together.
On the nevela part, right? Because of ein isur halal isur. You have an isur of eating the nevela, right? Yeah. Remember that was the Rambam. That there's no isur halal isur. So the gabe the isur of bishul, even though it still applies.
Because there's no isur of bimavashal of nevela. So there you don't have the problem with isur halal. By bishul, isur of cooking a nevela. So since there is no isur of cooking a nevela, if you cook it now with milk, you don't have isur halal isur by cooking. What you're saying.
Talking about by eating.
No, but what you're saying by cooking is since there is no isur of cooking in the nevela. So if you're not going to cook it with milk, there is no question of isur halal of isur because there is no first isur to be on halal on. So you have no prohibition.
I'm not sure either. I didn't understand you. You mixed it up. We're not talking about the chalav of a nevela right now.
The meat.
The chalav is a regular chalav.
Let's make it
right. We're talking about the meat of a nevela in regular chalav.
Are you allowed to cook a meat of a nevela alone?
Cook it with what?
Alone.
What do you mean alone?
Now, is there an isur?
There's no isur to cook. There's
exactly.
no cook.
So
right.
now you put milk in there. You have an isur of cooking meat with milk.
Right. So the question is the three isurim of bishul, achilo, and hano.
Right.
You wouldn't have all of them with a nevela.
Well, hana you would have. Since you're allowed to have hana from a nevela, so if it was cooked with milk, you would still have the Isser of hana.
No. That was the Rambam that we said.
Basar b'chalav, it's
Yeah.
basar b'chalav.
Yeah. But if something is not also be'achila, min Torah,
Then you don't have an Isser.
the Rambam says what we infer from that is
Oh,
that
you don't-
Isra ha'ano would not apply to it. Yeah. So therefore, there would be no Isra, there would be an Isra of achila, but not because of basar b'chalav, because it's an avela. And once you have an Isra of nevela, you don't have an additional Isra of basar b'chalav on it.
That's very interesting because when we look at that's what I said, and I was corrected. That's why I
How were you corrected?
It's well that it is.
No,
It's let's go a tama animal. So the service mechalov does not apply.
Yeah, but that's what's a little bit confusing, and I'm going back and
No,
forth
if
over
you're
here.
saying- if you're saying it doesn't apply, I'm very happy with that. Because
Right.
It makes sense.
Yeah, that's what it is. And
That
this-
is what the mechaber, what the base of Yosef says.
Yeah.
It's legabe a tama animal.
Right.
Since it's already prohibited the raisa, he did it. So you
Okay,
can have
yeah, so let me see 1 second. The gabe the tameh. Yeah, but over there you don't have it at all. The gabe the tameh animal, you don't have the Isra basar b'chalav altogether.
Right. No, but his
Right.
argument is, look at the tour. His argument is, why is the tour's formulation so unhappy? He said, because one might think that there is an Isser there, but there can't be because it's not an Isser. And the Ram says there is a difference.
Yeah. Right. So, but anyway, that's the halacha legabe nevela. Legabe chalav hanimsa bekeva. We just said we spoke about chalav. Right now we're speaking about chalav. Chalav hanimsa beveima shchuta is something else. It's also excluded, but it's midrabanan also. What about chalav hanimsa bekeva? You took a calf, you opened up its stomach, it just had lunch, it just had its mother's milk. Why should this be any different? Well, it's a whole big sugya. So we're not going to go through the whole sugya now. We'll leave it for next week. But just to give you an idea of what's going on over here, it's a big machlokes of rishonim. Chalav hanimtza bekeva eino chalav. The Chaber holds it's not even milk. Wow, but it looks like it.
It
No,
was already digested.
what?
Because it was garbage.
Exactly. It's digested. It's acidic. It doesn't even. It looks even different a little bit than the regular milk. Umutar levashel b'basar afilu b'tzolol sheba. You would be able to cook meat even in that which is solul, liquid form, because sometimes it's solid. And there are some shittas that hold solid, yes, liquid, no. And some say no, even the liquid. The Mechaber says at least there is an opinion, all right? Toises, the Rosh, Rabbeinu Tam, the Rashba, the Ran. So he's learning like the Rif, I think the Rif in the Rambam first, but these others say that it would be Aser. So therefore, we need to understand what this Chalav Hanimtza Bekeva is all about. Why would you want to use it? Well, one of the uses is because of the acidity in this kind of milk. It's used to make. You can use this to make. As a starter, exactly. So this is really, really completely different. It doesn't even taste like milk. It doesn't really look exactly like milk. It's not really milk like Ilan was saying. It's porish be'almo. It's waste. By the time it has drunk the milk, it has already been digested. It's already has been changed. It's something completely different. But others say no. It really is still similar to the original. And that's what the basis of the machlokes really is. And of course, this could make a difference, as we will see, if it was actually, by mistake, salted. Mm-hmm. The meat was salted together with the together with the chalav. Then salting it has absorbed the meat, if by mistake. Obviously most people would clean up the stomachs and throw this all away. But it could happen that, it was there. What's interesting about this, that in the olden days, they actually used everything. They saved everything. You had your cow in your barn, perhaps, or your calf, and you took this, used the schmaltz for this, and this for that, and this for that. So, today you don't even get a chance to see what these things look like, the halal. People, buying everything in the grocery, in the store, packaged, wrapped, and what do they know? Well, they don't even know what fat is. Everything is removed, everything is clean. But these are actually items that people dealt with. People made soap from all these kinds of fats. Candles were made from fats, from the chelef, from the forbidden fats. Candles. Today you don't. Everything is wax, the regular ones. So, if one of those candles fell into the soup, you were in trouble. you're eating your Shabbat meal and a candle falls. Sometimes it falls. You have to be careful, not on the fire only, but it would actually make the food treif as opposed to a wax candle. Big deal. See what I mean? So you have to know where they were made from. So anyway, we'll be discussing this halacha next week a little bit as to how it can be used and how it cannot be used.